What's going on, everybody? Wow, it's been a minute. Definitely has been a minute. Special edition of the Exegesis. I am DJ Red 4, um, and I think it's time to break my silence on the Acolyte series. And this was kind of impromptu. Notifications kind of went out late. But you know what? It needs to be talked about. It's in the news. We already have some people in the chat. So welcome. We got Lunar Girl here. We got Ro from the Scare of Scuttlebutt. And we have the Dingus Den. It wouldn't be a good show if the Dingus Den didn't show up. So welcome, everybody. And, it's been a while, so I asked for a little assistance here. And so let me bring him on. Captain Rowe. Captain, oh, Captain, how are you?
How's it going, DJ? Good to see you again. And welcome back. Welcome back to the airwaves. I know it's been a while. You were I brought you out of retirement for last week's Scuttlebutt episode, but I'm glad to see you.
Yeah. This is all your fault. So,
Good.
And I'm sure you're not sorry about that at all.
I am not sorry at all. I love seeing you on the air. I love hearing your voice, and it's wonderful that you picked this evening to do so.
Well, yeah. I had a little bit of downtime, and you know what? It keeps cropping back up in the news. Whether it's hey, here's the show, like it or leave it. Then you have the throngs of people on either side, and interestingly enough, there really was no middle ground. It was either you like it or you hate it. Middle ground seemed to be scarce for this one.
It's been like that for a while, and I think one of the biggest reasons that Brad and I kind of got into this podcasting thing, because we did notice that there was just like no middle ground. It seemed like there was no honesty. There was no, like real honest discussions like we used to have it at recess, in grade school. Like, what'd you think of this? What'd you think of that? Nobody, gouged anybody's eyes out in the play yard. And we just talked about the cool stuff that we liked. And if we didn't like something, we talked about it for a little bit too, and then just moved on. But it does seem like there's no middle ground, especially here on the socials.
Yeah. And, and everyone's entitled to their voice. Everyone's entitled to their opinion. And we've stressed that in Red 5 quite a bit. Everyone can have your opinion. It's great. Just be respectful about it and, let people have their platform. But oftentimes it seems like, especially in the Xverse, Twitterverse, whatever you want to call it, when people get their chance to say their voice, they jump up on that soapbox, ball up their fist, and just yell "the kingdom come" and expect everyone to listen to them and to what they say is gospel. And
it's an interesting phenomena too, because as passionate fans on either side of the hallway here, the spectrum, we're all passionate fans, whether you ball your fists up or talk about stuff online. But I think we all kind of sometimes fall into that trap of just being like super passionate and forgetting sometimes about the honest discourse. But I'm hoping that as we get further and further into fandom, we at least kind of just respect each other's opinions. But yeah, like I'm glad that you're talking about the Acolyte. I know, I've been saying it all the time. I mean, since the leaking of the trailer, I mean, for me, it was something that I was like really looking forward to. And then it happened.
I found it interesting. And part of my reason for my layoff on the airwaves is I wanted to try a new approach with this show. Previously, I would watch an episode, go on air, talk about that episode, whether I liked it, and I would get lots of comments about, oh, just wait till it all unfolds. Just wait till, I'm sure this is going to happen, and they're going to explain this, and they're going to, it'll all come together in the end. And so just don't worry about it. Just be a good follower and have faith. So on this one, I laid off the socials. I went into it relatively spoiler free. I really I knew that there were certain characters that were showing up. I knew that the basic premise of the show, but no key points. So, and I watched all 8 in a row, and I took notes per episode, and then we would discuss it in the chat after I was done. Hey, here's my thoughts on episode 1. Here's episode 2. So on and so forth. And it was great because afterwards, going back and looking at the timeline and seeing people just get shish kebabbed on their takes for each episode, I'm like, ooh, I'm glad I didn't wade into those waters. But after it was all done and seeing all the negativity that was surrounding it, good and bad, I was like, man, is this going to be another one of those situations where I'm like, I'm going to hang it up and I'm not even going to talk about anything at all. You helped me through one of those situations. And I was like, man, do I even want to get into it? And comes down to it, you know what? We all have opinions. There's nothing wrong with expressing it. I just want to be respectful of it. And so, so here we are. And we have liked the idea of the show, but terrible execution. So,
what did you see any of the trailers before the show dropped? What were your thoughts before you saw anything?
So I saw, I guess it was the very first one, and they showed a brief glimpse of Carrie Ann Moss. And my first thought was, are they going to Matrix this? So is this going to be one of those things where they're going to borrow heavily from another movie and bring in a well-known actress and kind of tie it in together? Because I knew and I heard that Keanu Reeves was also up for a role in it, but he turned it down. So I'm like, oh, all right. If they would have got Keanu, is this just going to be a Star Wars Matrix?
Sure. Yeah.
And so I'm like, all right, after that, I'm shutting it down. I'm not gonna watch anything else. I don't want to know. I want to go in as fresh as possible in there. And after the first one, I was like, okay, it was good. Was it Star Warsy enough? I liked the flashes. I liked the intrigue. Let's see where we're going to go from here. And after that first one, it took a nosedive.
Yeah. And I think the marketing of the show too was a little problematic. It seems like they were marketing it as a murder mystery, and I was all for it.
Yeah.
But there was no mystery about it really up until they kept bringing in new elements, and I think people were guessing, and they were guessing correctly about all the mysteries that were introduced, including the situation with I guess I'll call him Chimere before he was revealed to be the one of the head honchos or the main Sith. And we're like, yeah, I think it's him. And it was, I don't know, it was too obvious. I think a lot of the mysteries of this mystery show were presented in a way that it was super obvious. People were guessing. And, if you take a look at the numbers of the viewership of each episode, I mean, each one was less and less and less, and the graph was going down, down, down. And then by the time we get to, the controversial episode number 3 that supposedly was going to break Star Wars in pieces, after episode 3, people just started watching, which hot take, episode 3 for me was probably my favorite episode, because I liked I like the witches, and I like the new interpretations of the Force, and I thought
Mhm.
it gave us something to kind of like think about.
Yeah.
And I wasn't like too much of a stickler for, I guess, the concept that this interpretation of the Force was going to either negate Anakin's birth or throw things, throw a wrench in all of it. I think it's kind of obtuse to think of that in that way. What's up, Danny?
Yeah, and I wasn't sure how I was going to take that. And I heard rumblings about it that there was going to be something, that's going to tie in like the prequels. And I'm like, all right, well, how are they going to do this? And then after watching it, I was like, oh, all right, so I guess this is how. And I was like, Plagueis has got to be around there somewhere
Mhm.
because
And it's funny, you were thinking about that in early on, right?
yes, yeah, yeah. Well, right after the episode, and they were talking about how they're bringing life in,
Right.
and I'm like, okay, so this is where Plagueis learned it, but where was he? And so I kind of went back and was like, huh, all right, well, I didn't notice anything, so it just seemed really odd. Um, I love the concept though. Uh, like you, this was one of the highlights where, oh, something new, something fresh.
Sure.
Let's see where they're going to take this. And it was one of those things where, like, all right, you have this golden nugget, and then you drop it in the sand. And I'm like, all right. There were a lot of elements in this series that I actually enjoyed.
Yeah, same here. I think that again, I keep saying it. The overall, I guess, some of the elements in the stories were fascinating. It's just Dingus said it earlier. It's just the execution was bad. I didn't like the flashbacks. I didn't like the um certain point of view that they were presenting the story. And I think out of how many episodes was it? 8?
Yes.
So out of the 8 episodes, it almost seemed like that it could have been a really tight, I don't know, 6 episodes. But yeah, it was kind of all over the place.
Yeah. I mean, some of the things that and I guess I'll start with things that I did not like. Um, and I don't mind that the Jedi, who were supposed to be the light bringers of this world, the truth, justice, that aspect of it, and they kind of did them dirty in this show.
Yeah.
And I understand from a certain point of view, and if you looked at it from this way, and no, they kind of lied, cheat, and stole, and
Covered up.
yeah, and I was like,
It was a lot more than just a misunderstanding. It was pretty deep down malice, deception. I mean, all the stuff that a dark side user would do.
mhm,
And I think I think that's one of the things that kind of turned off a lot of people. Um, we grow up having an absolute view of Star Wars. The good guys are Jedi, and the Sith are the bad guys. Um, it didn't bother me too much as far as what Leslie Headland was trying to achieve, as far as maybe giving, I don't know, another interpretation of certain things. But I don't know if it's that they went overboard too much, or her connection to real world, the whole Harvey Weinstein thing, which I don't really take into account. I mean, this is a story that is presented in this fake universe. I don't know. I don't know if she had that in, if that was intention, if that was her intention to kind of present bad guys in a new light. A lot of people were saying that, since she was the assistant to Harvey Weinstein, that she wanted to bring in that aspect of things. But I don't know. We're not going to know um, specifically that. I
I,
mean, she tried to tell a story that was different, and I'll give her credit for that. And she does seem, I've seen a lot of interviews with her talking, and she does seem like she's a fan of Star Wars per se,
Mhm.
but I think I don't know, just there's a little, it was written very messy.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say was uh, I liked her plot points for the series, and I'm almost thinking that as a person who's writing this, you're like, all right, so and so, May and Osha are going here, and they're going to do this, and you're typing it out, and you have this conversation, and then this story is in your head, but when you type it out, you leave out some of the details because
Yeah.
it's already in your head, and you're like, all right, well, I don't need to explain this part of it because I already know what's going to happen and I know what came before it. And so you only write this really narrow part of it. And when people start to watch it that are not aware of the headcanon that's, in the writer, that is like, well, why wasn't this explained well enough? Well, because in their head it was. And they knew what was past, they knew what was future. They're writing what's going on now, and you're only getting this small amount of it. And I think that's a lot of it. I think the writing part uh, just did not connect the dots well enough. I don't mind that there were witches that created life. A lot of people are like, "Oh, how could you? Why not?" You know.
And I think that was one of my favorite, like, larger scope concepts of the story that was really intriguing to me.
Mhm.
And I know a lot of people got hung up about, these witches creating life through the dark side, and there was talk about that concept negating Anakin's birth. I've got another take on it, but that was one of the cool things about that episode that I enjoyed. Dingus Den put up a comment there, and I think, I read like one and a half books of the High Republic. They didn't really connect with me, but I always wonder, like super fans of the High Republic, like what was it like to watch this? Because I understand that Venestra, her character was very different in this series than in the books. She's older, obviously, but I always wonder how folks of the High Republic, fans of the High Republic, um, I don't know, take this show, and if they're happy with the perception of what the High Republic is or was, because I know we're, obviously tail end. Um, but it's, I don't know, it's interesting.
Yeah. One of the main things that I did not like uh, in this, and I believe it was episode 2, maybe 4, but we had a Jedi commit suicide.
Yeah, I'm still at a loss as to, it was when we first saw it, it was intriguing. We're like, damn, what must have precipitated to have that happen?
Right.
But then when we learn what actually happened, I don't know if that would um make me want to kill myself if I were a Jedi. I don't know. It was a little weird.
It
And I
almost,
and I know Andrew over at Coruscant Radio Underground did a whole thing about what message that, shows, and I know Brad kind of, said the same thing. Um I don't know. I think if you make a list of all um the faults and the bad qualities that each of the Jedi had in this show, you can definitely make a list of all the things that start to become a characteristic of the Jedi. Um, Once we get to the prequels, where Yoda talks about, some of these, characteristics in Jedi that are starting to pop up, but there seems to be a lot of time between what happens here and then the prequels.
mhm.
Isn't it like 100 years?
Yes. Yeah.
Um, so I don't know. It's a little odd. I think maybe that time should have been brought in, but that also kind of, I've also heard the argument that the reason that the Jedi in the prequels were kind of blindsided was because of the strength and the power of Palpatine and how he was kind of pulling the wool over their eyes. And in this case, it's not Palpatine because he's not around. So what is it? I don't know.
Yeah, and yeah, you got to jump all the way to the end for the big reveal at the end, where you have Yoda in a room. So Yoda knew that all this was going on, and yet for all these years,
Presumably, because the next scene when Vanestra walks in and says, "Master Yoda, I have something to tell you." Who knows what happens? There could have been
right,
a something.
yeah,
Yoda's microwave might have binged and dinged, and his hot chocolate was ready, and he was
yeah,
distracted, and he went over. I mean, anything could have happened,
right,
but it does seem suspect that if that were the case, and Vanestra did tell Yoda like everything, why did either obviously you've got the question, why did Yoda keep that secret? Why didn't Yoda do anything about it? Wouldn't Yoda have sensed all these Jedi being killed? And if he did, again, why didn't he do anything, or why did he hide it? Um, it's a little bit of a conundrum when it comes to bringing in that character into the story because what's the deal? And yes, Yoda
yeah,
was trying to take a dump.
yeah, yeah. Uh, Dingus says, I understand both sides of the argument about the Jedi offering himself. I think it's a matter of people accepting the Jedi being more humanizing than the heroes that that we are to see elsewhere. And I can understand that. We start to see cracks, although it's a lot. They came a lot faster than I expected to see, as far as them being more humanistic. They were supposed to be
Yeah.
the upper echelon of good and upholders of justice, and now we're seeing that. All right, maybe it
I
wasn't
think
quite that
yeah,
way.
I think these Jedi were the worst. Um and when you have you're supposed to have a super heightened awareness of becoming a Jedi. And I'll give you the example of Torben. Just he seemed like a capricious teenage kid that just wanted to go home and play PlayStation instead of looking for the virgins on this planet. It just
Mhm.
didn't make sense. I think that was another thing that kind of hung me up, is that the character motivations in this show were a little off the wall, especially with the twins. I'm going to give myself up to the Jedi. Oh, here's some Jedi. Well, why don't you give yourself up? No, I'm going to fight them instead. It's like, what?
Yeah, yeah. You start with a kernel of good, and then it gets rolled around in some dung, and then they like, here you go.
Yeah,
Take it, and shine it up really pretty, and it's okay. I don't really want to touch it now. Um, I liked, and a lot of people are like, oh, if you didn't like this character, then then you might have a problem with race or whatever. And I loved her performance. I thought she did an amazing job. One, playing twins is always got to be difficult to do, but I loved the character. I thought she did really well with it. I loved Saul. I thought he did a great job.
yeah.
Um, I don't know what the other dude's is. What's his name? Manny Jacinto, his character.
Yeah.
Uh, you know,
Kimi or
yes, yeah,
whatever. Yeah.
amazing, absolutely amazing.
Yeah,
I loved
this
it.
is one of those cases where the actors, we don't have a problem with the actors. They did well. And I kind of equate that to Willow. I like the actors in Willow, and they did a great job. It's just that the script just wasn't up to par. They did what they could, but the magic wasn't on the printed page. The
Yeah,
magic was gone in
it, it,
Willow, and I think it's the same thing here.
it reminded me of Riva in Kenobi.
Yes,
She did a great job with what she was given. She was
right,
just given a turd to act, and
right.
and she did well with it. But yeah, it's just man. and I'm trying to think of some good things to say. Um,
Well,
Choreography,
yes,
amazing.
there's a lot of good things. I mean, we're not going to be sitting here and crapping on stuff all
Oh
through the
yeah,
show, but I think the music was fantastic.
amazing.
The choreography was very, very decent. I'm not going to say it was like mind bending because I know they set the stage and saying that they're going to try and beat the lightsabers in the prequel trilogy, and I don't think they did it. I think for me, the lightsaber between Obi-Wan and Darth Maul and Qui-Gon, I still think that's the top tier lightsaber battles. Kudos to what's the trainer? What was his name?
Oh, yeah, I'm not a trivia guy when it comes to that
Yeah,
stuff.
it's
But
right
yeah,
it's right here. But yeah, that to me that's still, Darth Maul and Qui Gon
mhm.
and Obi-Wan. Those that is still it has not been topped.
Yeah. So we had a few good actors. Then we had, I mean, in the choreography, I liked a lot of the choreography. And then you come up, then you get that reverse side of the coin, and you have this Wookiee played by Jonas, fantastic Wookiee,
Yeah.
but he looks like he's straight out of Harry and the Hendersons. He looked goofy. I mean, I was like, why? Why would you? Yeah, it just didn't. I don't know.
Yeah.
Um, we had so much and I even wrote it down in my notes. I'm like, oh, here's this poisoner guy. Yeah, he seems suspect. I wonder, to
Right.
your point
Yeah.
earlier,
Mhm.
it's like, oh, okay, and then I'm like, well, who's this guy? Who's trained him? Are we going
Mhm.
to get like a Reven, or what? Where are we going to fall on this thing? And then you finally get the reveal at the end, and I, I just think it was poorly done. Another
Mhm.
execution era. I don't mind seeing Plagueis,
Sure.
great, but
And people asked for him.
yeah,
People said, "Hey, wouldn't it be cool?" But I think what really pissed people off was like everybody's saying, it's just the execution. Um, it seemed like they took a halfway decent story, didn't develop it, and then cut it up into sections, threw it up in the air, and then where it landed, that's how they figured out how to pace the series, and
hmm
it just didn't work.
yeah, absolutely.
Like episode 3 and episode 7 should have been one episode,
Yeah,
and I don't know why they had so many episodes in between, because by the time we got to episode 7 it's like, I don't really care anymore.
yeah. So yeah, he says it makes perfect sense for him to be there, even though we don't know why. But how I
Reasons,
would
reasons, dingus, reasons.
how I would have I would have had um, Kamir talk to somebody. You don't see
Hmm.
who it is,
Right.
but you know that he's talking to his master, and he's
Master, right.
training someone. But all of a sudden, you just see out of the corner, oh, here's the face. Oh,
Hmm.
hey, there's the big
Yeah.
reveal. Oh, that was his master. How do you know that was his master? There
Yeah.
was no other allusion to it other than he showed up for all of 3 seconds.
Right.
And I mean, it just, yeah, the simple little changes could have done this whole thing and done it well. So
Reasons, Danny. Reasons.
just a
Yeah.
list of things that happen. And we've made this is not the first time we've made mention of this for a series. Um, the last Mandalorian, season 3, we talked about this. They've pulled so many threads that there's no way in the world that they're going to be able to resolve all these little strings that they've pulled out. So, they're giving us these expectations. Hey, here's this plot line, this plot line, this plot line, this plot line. And the ones we're going to resolve, you haven't even seen yet because it's going to happen in episode 4. So, I, we should be cautious, but being the Star Wars goobers that we are, we
Right.
just buy into it hook, line, and sinker and just
Yeah.
feed me more Star Wars. And when it comes down to it and we're critical of it, then it's like, well, gee, why didn't you like that? We gave you what you wanted. Well, partially,
Partially. Yeah.
partially.
Yeah.
You know, I don't care if it's all new.
Mhm.
I, Andor,
Yes.
perfect example. I mean,
And it's the thing that bites my craw too is the whole, well, you didn't like it because there's minorities in the show, and it's like, no, that's not why. Um, I mean, I'm a minority, and I didn't like it. Andor was very well received. Nobody talked about having a Mexican actor on up there on screen. It was brilliantly written. But I think people. What's that saying? The dog whistle. If you don't like it, it's because there's a woman on screen or whatever. But just wasn't written well.
yeah,
We don't. I think most people don't have a problem with women heroes or
not at all.
brown antagonists, but just make the stories good.
Right. That's all we asked for. And I mean, Andor was written very well. I didn't know if I was going to like it. It's a different type of Star Wars.
Sure.
So when people are like, "Oh, you don't like new Star Wars," well, no, I loved
Yeah.
Andor. That was
Yeah.
completely separate from what we've ever seen anywhere. You
Yeah.
know, Mandalorian seasons 1 and part 2,
Sure.
great,
Yeah.
interesting concepts, written well. Let's go, and then it kind of falls off the cliff. When you start introducing Book of Boba Fett and all that nonsense and whatnot. So it's not that we're not here for the new Star Wars, and it's not that we don't like it because of the actors or the race or anything. It comes down to it is the writing.
Yeah.
Is it coherent and does it make sense?
The writing is a good it's supposed to be the spine of any good television show. It just wasn't there for the series.
Yeah,
DJ, I'm gonna jump, and I'm hoping
sure.
somebody else will join you. If anybody wants to join DJ on camera, I posted a quick little thing because I was thinking about the math when it comes to the Acolyte and the viewership and all that other stuff. And one of the things that I found out, obviously the um the petition that's been going around to save the Acolyte, they're up to a little over 40,000 folks, 40,000 people that want the Acolyte to be saved, which is commendable. It's a very impressive number when you look at it by itself.
Mhm.
But I was taking a kind of a gander at the subscription of Disney Plus, and it's 153 million people that are subscribed to Disney Plus. 40,000 people don't even reach 1% of
Yeah,
that viewership of those subscriptions. So, the 40,000 people that have signed that petition, again, it's a number very impressive by itself, but it's indicative also to the low viewership of the show as it is related to the entirety of subscriptions on Disney Plus. So,
yeah, yeah. Well, I
and I
know you
just,
have to head out. I do appreciate you stopping in.
yeah, absolutely. Always fun. And again, I mean, I'm glad, I hope you kind of make a regular thing. I know, life gets in the way, but I hope to see you on the airwaves every so often. And you're always welcome to hang out in the cafe here on the Scare Scuttlebutt podcast and some other stuff. Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, I think you brought me out of retirement, darn you.
Excellent. Love to see everybody in the chat, and may the force be with you. And that's the Scuttlebutt.
Yes, sir.
All right. Talk to you later.
All right. All right. So where to go from here? I guess what I'm going to try to do until Spence jumps in. And where did I put that? All right. So we had where to go? Too many windows open. All right. So, episode 1, 100 years before the rise of the Galactic Empire, the Galactic Republic and Jedi Order preside during a time of centuries-long peace in a bar on the planet Ueda. Jedi Master Indara is attacked and killed by a woman wielding daggers. Bartender identifies Osha Anasa, a former Jedi Padawan learner, as the killer. Osha, who works as a mechanic doing dangerous repairs outside of starships, denies committing the crime when arrested by Jedi Knight Yord Fandar and his Padawan Tassi Loa. En route to Coruscant, the galactic capital, Osha's fellow prisoners escape and leave her to crash land on the planet Karlak. She sees a vision of her twin sister May, who is presumed dead in a fire, seemingly killed their family when they were young. Osha deduces that May is alive and is the one who killed Indara. Jedi Master Venestra Rowe sends Master Soul, Osha's former teacher, to Karlak with his current Padawan, Jeki Lon and Yord. They find Osha, and Saul accepts her theory about May. Elsewhere, May meets with her mysterious master, who has challenged her to kill a Jedi without using a weapon. And go back over here. Oh, and there's Spencer there. Hey, Spencer.
How are you
How
doing?
we doing?
Doing good.
Awesome. So yeah, here's my notes on the first episode. I enjoyed the first episode. Kind of got a little wonky at the end. Parts of it reminded me of the tree Luke went into in Empire Strikes Back. What was real and what wasn't, but a solid opening. Was it swarzy enough though? How do you have a big name like Carrie-Anne Moss as an actress and you kill her in the first episode? And I said, no telling where they're going to take this unless they do more of that BS Book of Boba Fett flashback nonsense. Said, God help us. Yeah, your Spencer, your overall thoughts on Acolyte?
I mean, it's a story that I wanted to like. It seemed like for everybody, they wanted to like this story because it was a very intriguing idea, but it just wasn't executed well, and that was the big problem. Is you have a bunch of ideas that they couldn't connect or develop well.
Yeah, and we've been searching for that for quite a while now. I would say probably since Mandalorian season 2, or the end of it. Maybe Book of Boba Fett, which was basically Mando 2.5, and Mando season 3. We really haven't we've gotten lots of bright spots, but that connectivity of a story seems elusive. And I know that you are a comic book guy.
Indeed.
So the comics don't seem to have a problem with getting a story and having it make sense throughout a multi-issue arc. Why do you think live action is falling or failing on that part?
I would say that you don't have a person to connect those dots that's necessarily in charge there. I know people are really hopeful about Filoni trying to, but I don't think that's really his role there, though. It's more of to just help with certain canon things go through. Because I know some people are kind of mad at Filoni for allowing certain parts of this show to go on. As sort of touched on earlier, the whole force creation stuff, and whole mixed argument there. And so, but at the end of the day, I just don't think they have anybody to really help orchestrate crossover with any of that.
So I know that we've had, well, you got Kathleen Kennedy, who's in charge of everything.
Right.
You got Filoni, who has done a good job with the projects that he's had.
Right.
You have Jon Favreau, who also has done a fairly decent job with what he's had. You would think that between the three of them, that they would be able to come out with something a little more substance filled.
You think so, and I think some of those cracks kind of show when they're spread too thin. Like when with the last few Mandoverse shows, because I think Mandalorian seasons 1 and 2 are still the best Disney Plus content to come out, and I think that shows because that's when you had Filoni and Favreau. They bounce off of each other, improving all their ideas, and I think one's better in the filmmaking aspect, and the other's better in knowing Star Wars and lore. And so when you have those two together, they created a great entity of the first 2 seasons of Mandalorian, and that's a huge reason why it succeeded, I think. But I think we really shown why the other shows weren't as good overall, because you don't. From there, I think there were more solo projects. Like Book of Boba was the that one director that came in that I don't remember his name. And then Mando season 3 was more of, I think, just Favreau, and then Ahsoka was Filoni's baby.
Right. Yeah. I really would. I know that this is. I really want a George Lucas type. Whether it's George, whether it's Filoni, but he should be. If Kathleen Kennedy wants to run Lucasfilm, great. There's lots of umbrellas under Lucasfilm. And you have Star Wars, you have the other aspects of it. Indiana Jones is still under Lucasfilm, I believe, and so you have all these other things. And sure, she's been successful. She started off with Spielberg and George, and they've created this huge empire. Sure, let her oversee all of it. As far as titles go and directors and whatnot, great. Have Filoni just overall have him be the creative guy. He knows Star Wars backwards and forwards, upside down, sideways. It doesn't matter. He knows the lore. And then you have these other writers that are saying, like Favreau, hey, I want to make this story. Great. Mm-hmm. Let's make it fit in. They used to have a story group just for this reason.
Right.
Pablo and the gang. I think there was 5 total that they used to have in the story group, somewhere around there.
Yeah.
And, it's like, all right, well, that doesn't make sense because of this, and this. And, we're going to fact check this. We're going to make sure that when this book comes out, it fits where it's supposed to fit.
Mm-hmm.
And right now, we're not getting that. We're just getting people. I want to write a Star Wars project. All right, great. Go ahead and do it. Here's your stack of cash. Go make us a quality project. And they spend all the money on all the bells and whistles, but they forget the core component of the writing.
Yeah, I think. I mean, that's such a big problem with a lot of it is just whoever's in charge of writing it. And I don't know if you saw, but it was with episode. I'm trying to remember whichever one the Wookiee died. Episode 4. Episode 4. After that came out, one of the writers came out and was, trying to defend her. I think it was a she, trying to defend her work. And it was interesting though too, because she was talking about how there's also though she called it a Disney mandate to have the episodes half an hour long, and I think that's a really big problem with this show. Of its what really held it down. I think what really hurt the show is whenever you look at them, it came out around the same time of House of the Dragon season 2, and those shows have the same budget, but you have you have like full on dragon stuff going on and hour-long episodes. It seems like it was shot better too, and so it's like, what are they doing over there on Star Wars? I mean, I get there's other big special things to spend it on, but just comparing the two projects side by side, it's kind of like what went wrong here?
Yeah, and and I hate bagging on Star Wars, but that's what we're talking about right now. They're not the only Disney property that's having this issue. Marvel, over on the Marvel side, and their Disney Plus shows are running into the exact same thing.
Yes.
And my first thought was, is it getting watered down? Are there too many irons in the fire where, we can't do this because this project's going to use that, and they're going, they want to be first, or we're going to use these writers over here on this one, but we're going to tie it in over in this little way. And so they're either short-staffed and using the same writers over multiple projects, and they kind of get confused, or they're holding it back and trying to. I try to think of it like a marionette, like one of those puppets that have like the 8 strings, and in order to make it all work, you have to do it together. Whereas I think right now everything is just going up against a wall, and all the strings are getting tangled, and none of it's making sense, and people are getting pissed off. But I don't know. I don't know.
I don't know. It's kind of hard to say, because it's like, even in the parts where they should be better interconnected, they're not. Like the Mandoverse stuff, for example. They could be. I mean, I think how they're connected is fine, but it could be better.
Yeah, and again, I'm thinking that we're going to get more later, which, especially for like Mandoverse, we know that we're getting another season and then a movie, or
I think it's just the movie.
I never know anymore. It's hard to keep track of.
I think it's just the movie that they're focusing on, is what I heard. Because I know there's a bunch of like stuff that came out the moment the movie was announced, but what seems like is they're turning season 4 into a movie, is what it seems like they're doing.
Okay. All right. Yeah, it's hard to keep track, because they announce, hey, here's our movie list up until 2030, and then next week, half of those are going to be canceled, and we're going in this direction. So it's kind of hard to keep up with it. But
I guess the big problem is they shouldn't announce stuff that's not being written, because like we know James Mangold's making a movie, but I don't know if he's started on that or his project at DC, because we know. Wait, no. Right now he's working on some movie with Timothy Chalamet about Bob Dylan, and so it's like, it's like you have this, you announce this big project with such a big director, but it's like, well, wait, he may not even get to directing this movie in 3 years at least, or whatever.
Kind of reminds me of, I remember when they announced that Ryan Johnson, and sorry, Ro.
Oh, yeah.
You're going to smack me in the back of the head. Hey, he's going to direct The Last Jedi. And not only that, he's going to direct a trilogy. And how many years ago was that? And they still haven't said whether it's canceled or not. It's just kind of floating out into the ether somewhere. So, yeah, it's... They make these big announcements to get the clicks, to get people, the interest started, and what ends up happening 90% of the time is we get a mid-card writing effort, good special effects, and it's like, well, that's not what we were promised. And all right, well, maybe season 2 will help make up for that. Well, when you start, when in episode 2 the numbers start dropping and they don't ever rebound significantly. I mean, they had one uptick, and I think it was, let me look, Was it season 5 or episode 5?
I was going to say, I'd think that one, yeah.
Yeah. Episode 5, when you have the big uh, the big attack or the big saber battle, which was very well done. The rest of that episode wasn't that great. I mean, yeah. Uh, it just continued to go downhill, 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 and then you get to the finale. Well, why didn't anybody watch it? Well, were you watching any of the numbers in the previous episodes? They're dropping like flies. It's I don't know.
I mean, I had a very bad word of mouth. There's multiple people I've spoken to where they were just like, yeah, I only watched the lightsaber fight because that's what everyone's saying. That was the only good thing about the show.
Yeah. And and I know that there are passionate fans one way or the other. Like, and I was telling Ro when we first started, for this one, there was no middle ground. It's either you're on one side and you like it for this, or this, and then on the other side, it's like I hate it because of the same reasons why you liked it. I hated it, and then flip flopped. I liked it, because of this, and this, and I can't believe you liked it because of that. And there was that no middle ground there for anyone that I guess it would say the bread and butter of Disney Plus viewerships will watch it and kind of like it, kind of not, and then kind of stay in the middle. No, it was just either one way or the other. There was no middle ground to help tip that scale back even.
What also really annoyed me about the whole online culture of the show as well was the I'm trying to remember the term for it, but you had like the fake criticisms, I guess you could call it. It's like everyone was criticizing the show for the wrong reasons and not because of the bad writing for the most part too, of everyone that hated the show. And that was really annoying too. It's like, okay, yeah, there was this whole outrage about them supposedly getting Adimundi's age wrong, but it's like nobody at the time there seemed to actually be criticizing the writing. It's like, who cares about the guy's age? Maybe criticize what's actually going on in the story here. And there's just so much of that, of so many of the different parts of the show that was really annoying too.
Yeah, and thankfully that's kind of when I was taking my little break from the socials, and so I missed a lot of that. But yeah, it's just no one wanted to talk about the elephant in the room of the writing. Oh, well, we have, and this isn't my words, this is what I've seen online, folks, so don't come at me with I can't believe you said that. It's the most diverse cast ever. Great.
Yeah.
Not a problem with that. But the writing wasn't good. Oh, it had some of the best special effects that we've seen since the prequels. Great. But what about the other part of it? The writing part? It's very good actors can still only do so much if the writing isn't there.
Yeah.
The writing is the backbone of everything. If it's written like crap, you can act it out like an Oscar winner, but you're still acting out crap because that's what's written. And yeah, I don't know. I miss the days now where we can just get mediocre in the middle ground of stuff and people at least agree, yeah, all right, that was all right.
Yeah.
It wasn't good, it wasn't bad, it was just okay. And yeah, and I really feel bad for the people that are signing this petition.
Oh my God.
They probably don't even know what the petition's about. For the people that, change.org, all right, yeah, I'll sign that. All right, I'll sign that. They probably didn't even read it. Or, they've gotten their friends, hey, did you watch The Acolyte? No. Well, sign this petition. Okay. The viewership wasn't there to justify giving the money to make another season.
Right.
Plain and simple. Not to hurt anyone's feelings. Great. It was diverse. Awesome. Yes, it had new and inventive things that we haven't seen in Star Wars. Great. The viewership wasn't there
Yeah.
to justify spending another 200 million at least before marketing of another season where
Right.
you're just going to get more crappy writing. You know,
Yeah.
Mandalorian season 1, it had its detractors. I can't believe they did this. I can't, everyone, it had good writing. For whatever people didn't like about it, the writing was solid. So that started, all right, the viewership was up. People got into it. Whether they liked it or not, people watched it.
Mm-hmm.
Here's more money. Here's, Favreau probably said, you know what? Hey, I got season 2 already written out. We can do this one. Well, let me look it over. Yep. All right. Well, that connects all the dots. Here you go. Here's another 200 million. All right. Well, while that's being done, I also wrote season 3. And then there's this tie-in as well that this guy wrote. So, might as well just, and then it kind of, starting with Book of Boba Fett, the numbers started dropping. Mando season 3 came out. And people watched the first couple of episodes, and then it kind of tanked. Still good, decent plot points here and there. It was just the connectivity, was just not there. The focus shifted from, hey, here's Grogu, give me my money, and here's my marketing dollars, to the writing just wasn't there. Ethan's, kind of got a point here. Star Wars is diverse. It started in 1977 as diverse. How many different alien species were in the cantina? Yeah, were all the actors, a similar color? Sure. But we had lots of diversity when it comes to Jawas or, all the species that were there. Java, who was and wasn't in the first one, There soon afterwards, though, I mean, we had different bounty hunters and different species coming in. None of it was forced. It was organic and natural. And now it just seems, he's right. It's like, we need this type of actor of this ethnicity, of this, I can't think of the word that gender. To check this box so people feel included. No, just let it be natural, and it will work itself around. People fell in love with Star Wars the way it was way back then. You don't have to add all these bells and whistles to it.
Right.
I don't know. My thought, anyway. We don't need to force anything. It will organically come around to that, I think.
Yeah, I mean, it's just hard though to. I think a big part of it too, though, is it's like back then when it was primarily white casts, because it was like the times of higher ups just being white people being racist, and now you're having it to where it's like it's still maybe primarily them. But it's like now they're just trying to check the boxes to try to go to everybody. And so it's like they just need to try to let whoever has the job take the job, or if there's a role meant for something. Because, I mean, I think there's some roles out there that's meant for a certain kind of person, but not every role, So it just, I don't know. I think it's a very much a case-by-case scenario of, sometimes some person should be something, depending on the role, but not always. Not
right. Yeah, don't force it. It will. I think it will come along. Naturally, and I'm not saying that and I'm hoping listeners when they hear this aren't like, oh, he's either homophobic or racist or anything. No, I'm not at all.
I think a great example of this happening recently, of something just happening naturally as of recent, was the Disney put out their version of Percy Jackson.
Yeah.
And you have the main female in that. She was a white lady, a little girl, but she was black in the new show, and like she did a great job. And it's just like, well, you can tell she got the role because she was a great child actor that got the role.
Yeah, and people didn't care.
Some people tried to, but yeah, overall, yeah.
I mean, some people are racist and whatnot.
Right,
but
right,
yeah,
right.
And I loved it. I love the series. I'm ready for the next season to come out.
Yeah.
You know, May and Osha. You know, I was like, oh, you know, I heard people are saying because in Reva as well in Kenobi.
Yeah.
They only got that part because of their skin color. No, I thought she did a great job.
Yeah, yeah.
Both actresses did an amazing job in the roles that they were given. Now, was the rest of the writing great? No, but they did a great job with it.
Right.
You know, I mean, I don't know. It's just that to me, that's just people that are trying to make something out of nothing because they don't got nothing better to do than type away and, you know, and spew hate. And
that's the big thing that really annoys me about especially modern Star Wars in general, of just people reacting to it, of people just aren't grateful to have content, and even if it's good, can't accept that the content's good because it's not what they want. But it's like, well, you should be grateful that you even have something, because at the end of the day, whether you like it or not, if it wasn't for Disney buying Star Wars, you wouldn't have anything Star Wars.
Right. Yeah. Plain and simple. I mean, and I go back to, of course, showing my age again, in 1996, 97, when Shadow of the Empire came out. It was a book. It was a soundtrack. It was a Nintendo 64. Was it a Nintendo? Yeah, Nintendo 64 game. Comics. They tied it in everywhere. And that's the first Star Wars that we got, other than a book every now and then.
Right.
And people just ate it up. And it was great. Hey, Andrew, how are you? You know, and then you get the special edition. Movies came out in '97 as well. I remember them well. I skipped college classes just to go watch the Star Wars in theaters. And that was the start of it. And then we got 99, I guess it was, when they said, "Hey, we're going to make the the prequel trilogy." Great, awesome,
Right.
So yeah, hey Andrew, thanks for stopping in. We're actually going to be hopping off here soon, so we'll catch you over on the MCU Monday.
Absolutely.
So, but yeah, I mean, hey, we've been talking for about an hour here.
Yes.
It's my first time back in a while.
It's great having you back.
Well, I appreciate it.
Hearing your thoughts and giving another perspective.
Yeah. I mean, there's no hate here in towards any side whatsoever. I'm a middle of the ground guy. I enjoyed parts of it. Parts of it I did not like at all, which is par for the course for what we've been given here. I just hopefully will get some cohesiveness in the writing department. Spencer, go write for him, would you? I know you can write.
Well, we'll see. That'd be great. See, that's a big thing too. Is just like you need such a good creative idea of what to really add and not try to take away from what's already been done. That's a big reason actually why I really like the High Republic stuff. Is it was a great new era idea. But the problem with why the sales fell really off from phase one is because they're all books and it wasn't for everybody. And I think the big thing there is people would have been on board. And if they made a live action show to tie into the High Republic, it'd be doing a lot better, because they need open it up to the general audience, because when you make something only a novel, it's only going to be open to so many people, and so
Right. Yeah, and great point. The High Republic. I was excited when they first came out with the High Republic. I read the first 3 books.
Yeah.
But by the 3rd book, I'm like, I'm kind of lost. I missed something somewhere, and come to find out that it was kids' books that were kind of tying it in, and some
to a
comic
degree,
arcs
yeah.
that were that I missed. And I'm like, oh, well, that explains that. So they kind of spread themselves out to, and I get it, and I love it that they were trying to reach as many fans as possible to bring them in towards this center of Star Wars. Whether it's comic books, comic book lovers got into High Republic because of the comic books. Then they picked up the junior novels or the actual graphic novels, and then that's going to transition into the live action. Great, not a problem. I don't mind that, but they spread it out so fast and so thin that it was hard to keep up with all the little tendrils that they put out there. And
Yeah.
I don't know.
I mean, bring it back to the Acolyte, though, it was like, I really liked the idea of when we first got the show announced. I was like, well, at the time, this would theoretically come out around the time to be like a finale of sorts to the High Republic.
Mhm.
Now, those are coming out next year. I don't know exactly when, but like, it was like, well, it would have been great to have that as a cap into it all, of being like, and because if you could have had a proper introduction to what these Jedi actually were like back then, it could have
Yeah.
made more people interested in maybe saying, okay, if you had these connective tissues that were like strong and there, but you also didn't like need to read those, it could have been a really good way to also bring people in that way too.
Yeah.
Because then you wouldn't have to worry about spending 3 years on making whatever phase 1 covered when the books would have already had held off or have done it for however long. And so but yeah, I mean, and as I was saying earlier in the chat too, that was a big problem that I had, was just the Jedi in the show didn't feel at all like the ones from the High Republic or the prequels.
Right. Yeah, and it was well, the High Republic books themselves, or so you had Phase 1, and I enjoyed most of Phase 1, and then kind of got into Phase 2, and I'm like, wait a minute, this is kind of going backwards in time.
It's interesting.
And I'm like, why wasn't that Phase 1 and work your way up?
You haven't quite figured out why they did that. I bought the first Phase 2 book to read. I haven't read it yet. I'll get to it eventually. I guess it doesn't help that's a prequel either, because it's like they ended off Phase 1 with a huge cliffhanger.
Yeah.
And
that's supposed to be picked up in Phase 3.
Yeah.
And I'm like, so why? I don't know. They just like time jumping, I guess. But anyway, so we've been at this for an hour. I'm going to let you get on with your night. Thank you so much for hopping on. Always love hearing your thoughts as well. And, maybe I'm due for a comeback for Star Wars. So
absolutely.
We'll have to see. All right. Well, to the chat, thank you guys for coming in. We had Andrew, Ethan, Lunar Girl, Danny, Ro, and I think that's about it. So yes, thanks again to Spencer and Ro for joining me tonight. And we'll catch you some other time. Same bat signal, however that went. I don't remember. Anyway,
same bat time, same bat channel.
There you go. All right. Bye.
Laters.